Actually, I will remain a positive optimist forever because even in this dire situation, I feel that this is something that we can actually make it a positive thing.
So are we back on track to service as usual? Will we go back to the future? Will we return to a US security guarantee? Or actually, does Europe and European leaders need to really wake up? Let's discuss the path to peace and security with two European politicians. Jürgen Hart is a member of the German Bundestag and the foreign policy spokesperson for the CDU, the party which has emerged victorious after recent elections. Jürgen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us. And also on the programme, Jarosław Wałęsa, a member of the Polish Parliament in the governing Civic Platform Party, also the son of the former Polish President Lech Wałęsa. Good morning, Jarosław.
Good morning.
Very good. Oh, thank you very much. Good to have you with us. And I would like to introduce you to one another as well. Let's have a conversation about this, Jürgen and Jarek as well. Let's consider, first of all, Jürgen, would you accept that Prime Minister Starmer and President Macron are leading Europe at this point?
This is the fact I appreciate very much. I think leadership in foreign security issues in Europe can not only be done by European Union, but also by European NATO members. And UK is one of the most important NATO members we have. And I appreciate very much the role of Sir Keir Starmer now, but also of Emmanuel Macron. The German government is a little bit hiding away at the moment, but be sure that the chair of my party, who might become the next chancellor in Germany, Friedrich Merz, has a close contact to Emmanuel Macron and also to Prime Minister Starmer on a telephone routine. Therefore, you can be sure that Germany's mind and mood for the next years is also integrated into that what those two heads of state are doing now on facing the challenge we have.
Really interesting. And Jarek, a thought from you on that. I mean, the other consideration here is, are other European nations, including Poland, in your context, willing to be led by Sir Keir Starmer and President Macron?
Well, it seems we had a very good discussions yesterday at the European Council, and it seems that everyone is on board. Actually, I will remain a positive optimist forever because even in this dire situation, I feel that this is something that we can actually make it a positive thing. I mean, the fact that the Trump administration is doing such bizarre things actually forces us to do certain things that we were required to do 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but we haven't done it because we had this umbrella of European protection. Now we have to realize, and we are realizing it as we speak, that we have to secure our own borders, and we have to make sure that whatever we do it collectively and together. And I'm glad that we finally actually at this stage when we're tackling the problems.
Yeah, well,
we are securing financing. We're making sure that our defense industry is up and running. Obviously, we have a lot of catching up to do, but in the end, I think the whole Europe is going to emerge stronger.
Okay, I'm interested in what you say there, because is it not the case that Poland do not want to join the so-called coalition of the willing when it comes to sending troops?
But you have to understand that Poland already protects the border of Europe, not just European Union, but the whole Europe. We are protecting the border with Belarus. We have the border with Russia as well in Kaliningrad. So obviously, we have to secure these very sensitive border areas before we can commit to anything else. So it's not that we are not willing to join this coalition of the willing, because we are actually doing it as we speak. So you have to understand our position. We are there at the front lines already.
Poland notably has one of the strongest militaries in Europe. You're talking about GDP spending on defence aiming for 4.7% this year, but the borders with Ukraine and Belarus definitely worthy of consideration. Would you agree, Jürgen, because it's understood that Germany might not send any troops either?
We decided not to decide such a question now, because we have to see the situation in Ukraine as it is. If there will be a peace negotiated between Putin and Trump, which is not acceptable for Ukraine, we will also not behind that. And if Ukraine decides not to follow a plan of Putin and Trump, which is maybe an overwhelming of Ukraine, coming close to a capitulation of Ukraine, and Ukraine decided to continue the fighting against Russian aggression, then they should get any support they need on weapons and material and financial support we can give them to fight back Russia in that war.
Yeah.
And in case that there will be a peace treaty that is sustainable, acceptable for Ukrainians, supported by the world community, then there will be something like a United Nations resolution or something like that on the table. And then we have to think about what can be the guarantees for the security of Ukraine in the future. Germany contributed with police and other forces to the OSCE mission we had in eastern Ukraine after the Minsk agreements. Germany is contributing to several operations like that worldwide. But at the moment, we cannot judge on a peace treaty and its consequences that is not yet on the table. What we have heard the last weeks is more a dictated peace for Ukraine and not a negotiated, sustainable peace solution for the region. And with such a bad deal, we cannot identify ourselves and also not contribute. This is my point of view on that.
Yeah.
The question on stationing troops in Ukraine from other European states is much too early to answer now.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there may be a shift then from what Olaf Scholz had previously said. He's the outgoing Chancellor, of course. He had previously ruled it out, but perhaps there'll be a change under a new coalition. Let's then consider the other fundamental part of all of this, which is the US's role in whatever transpires from here on out. I note that Friedrich Merz has declared that he wants to make Europe actually independent of the United States, Jürgen. Do you think that is realistic? Can Europe manage without the US?
There's no question that our alliance in NATO, the coalition between North America and Europe, is the strongest and most effective pillar to keep peace worldwide, especially for the member nations of NATO. But if we have a situation in US where US probably thinks about to taking back troops from Europe or to modify its support for NATO in Europe significantly, then we have to be well prepared. And it was a pity and a mistake in the last years of the former German government not to increase defense expenditures in Germany as necessary, not to show to the US that we are able and willing to do significantly more quantitatively and maybe also qualitatively. I think about our capability and willingness to support other European NATO nations by, for example, sending troops as we now do in Lithuania.
Yeah.
I think we need a time shift in Germany on that field, and therefore the coalition negotiators between Christian Democrats and Social Democrats agreed on a defense extra defense spending of about 400 to 500 billion euros in the next few years to lift the debt break on that field of the budget of the defense minister, to make it possible to increase the expenditures for Bundeswehr and to make the Bundeswehr the strongest pillar of NATO.
Yeah, okay,
Europe.
Jürgen, I just want to get Jarosław's thoughts on this as well, because I think this phrase, to be actually independent of the US, is quite striking. What would be your response to that phrase? Can Europe be actually independent of the US?
Well, we have to consider a couple of different things. First of all, I believe that we have lost a lot of time because this war have not started 3 years ago. It started with the annexation of Crimea. And we had all that time to actually prepare, because we knew then that the only argument with Putin is the argument of power. And instead of that, we relied very heavily on American forces. Now we woken up to the new reality that we have to strengthen our own military to make sure that we can protect ourselves. That being said, whatever we do, we must do everything in our power not to isolate US. No, that's not a good right way to go, because it's the strongest partner of NATO. It's the nation with the biggest army, and we have to make sure that whatever new decisions of this administration is going to be, we have to make sure that we have a proper working relations with Trump and his administration. That's essential, because even if we want to establish certain independence military-wise, it's going to take a long time. It's not going to be tomorrow or next year. We need at least a couple of years to make it happen.
Yeah.
And
Jarosław, I'm so sorry, just time is against us, but I think we hear what you're saying, and I think it's fascinating to hear your perspective, and indeed Jürgen's as well. Thank you both very much. Jarosław Wałęsa, member of the Polish Parliament in the governing Civic Platform Party, and Jürgen Hart, who is foreign policy spokesperson for the CDU, which just won elections in Germany.